This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
Well, welcome to Sunday. By the way, sponsored by Motivation Nation and Sunday. What was the other expression they had? Motivation and Sunday morning, which is ironic because that's our altar of BARD, and we have a very special returning guest. Tina, you've been on this show before, correct?
I have, yes. It's good to be back on.
Thank you. Tina Glandian also doubles as running the New York office of G&G. And, you know, there was a couple of people who have tweeted at Gary and I that they wanted to have you back. So we decided to do that. Not the least of which is she's got a rather interesting client right now. Isn't that correct, Tina?
It is. I am representing the Tate Brothers. Andrew Tate is the better known brother. But yes, they are well-known figures. And this case is...
Don't you think Tristan would take a little...
He might, but I think he's supportive.
Okay. Well, Gary, why don't you play one of those clips we've had to give you kind of a taste of what's been happening in Tina's life?
All right, let's do it.
So in Romania, the procedure is a little different than what we're used to here in the United States. There, they have a procedure called preventative arrest, which is what they've essentially arrested the Tate brothers and two women for. And they arrested them at the end of December. And initially, it was a 24-hour arrest. And then the prosecution made an application for a 30-day extension, which was granted. And last month, they sought a further 30-day extension, which was granted. And most recently, that was extended again until the end of March. And they have up to 180 days in which they could extend this detention without formally charging them with any crimes. So it's an ongoing criminal investigation, but they are detained.
So, you know, I guess we start off with that. So the Tate brothers, who have quite a following, were living in Romania at the time?
They had been living there for about 5 years at the time. Okay.
And this concept, which you and I have obviously discussed off camera, but is amazing to me. This is an EU country, correct, Romania?
It is, yes. So yeah, it's very foreign to us and a lot of other parts of the world that you can arrest somebody, detain them for such a lengthy period. Again, you can extend this ultimately for up to 180 days, and that is without formal charges being filed. So for us, that completely flies in the face of due process and the system that we're used to.
Yeah, I mean, we have a system of jurisprudence here. And by the way, in the European Union, that has the concept of you just don't hold people incommunicado, basically for periods of time without charges. And I guess that's exactly what's happening here. How long have they actually been in?
They've been in since December 29th. So I think close to maybe 70 days now.
I think I heard somewhere, maybe it's on one of these other clips we've got. Gary, you have another clip with a gentleman, by the way, who's got a podcast. Tina, why don't you give a backstory on him, because you have a connection.
So yeah, I did the podcast for Patrick Bet-David about, a week or so ago. And right before we got on, we made the connection that it's a very small world. He lives in Florida now and I live in New York, but we both are from Glendale, California. We went to the same high school and know people in common. So that was a fun connection to make.
Well, wait a second. Is he Armenian?
Yes. Sorry, I forgot the obvious fact. He's also Armenian.
Really? Two people of indeterminate age, older than 20, less than 50, who live in Glendale. What a shock that they both went to Glendale High School.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we have that clip as well, I think.
I think we do, yes. I'm not sure if Patrick's included in the clip, but there's certainly some good commentary here from
Well, let's give him a shout out. It's from his podcast, Good Armenian Boy, and he's put together a thing called Valuetainment, which is killing it.
Yep.
After this investigation happened in April, and it was shown that...
Hey, wait a second, Gary, time out for a second. Notice that background there?
I do notice that. I think fans of Beyond a Reasonable Doubt will have recognized that from the past. That's Garrigus and Garrigus, New York. I would imagine.
It is. After this investigation happened in April, and it was shown that the allegations were false, and the police, made no arrests at the time. the Tate brothers actually filed criminal complaints in Romania against the two women who made these accusations. And again, that's not a fact that's been widely reported, but that is an open criminal investigation against the women. And that started, almost 8 months before the Tate brothers were ever arrested or, investigated really for any of the criminal accusations that they're currently being investigated for.
So explain this, because I think that's a good point. They're being held. There's two females who are being held. The last hearing, the two females were ordered released.
They were ordered released on house arrest, correct?
And then
both sides appealed a few days later. So our team appealed the extended detention of the Tate brothers, and the prosecution appealed the release of the two women on house arrest. And the appellate court essentially affirmed the extended detention of the Tate brothers, but reversed the women. So they ruled that the women could not be released on house arrest, and all four continue to be detained. How'd the clients feel about, at least in real time, initially, them not getting released, but the women getting released? I spoke to Andrew shortly after that ruling came down, and his immediate reaction was that he was actually happy that if anybody was going home, it was the women. And his reaction was that, jail is a really rough place, and he would rather the women go home and he and his brother stay and endure what they're enduring rather than the other way around. So, Gary, do we have a clip of either Andrew or his brother?
We can. If you give me a moment here, I can pull something up.
Okay. Yeah, just so people understand that. Tina, while he's pulling it up, have you received? I can tell you in real time. At least my perception is there's quite a bit of support for them around the world. Yeah, they have a tremendous following. There are endless, people who communicate with our office daily, offering their support and wanting to reach out to the brothers and, trying to figure out where they could send them mail and things like that. And I know while they are being detained now, they are receiving a tremendous amount of letters from friends and family and supporters. So that is keeping their spirits up while they are going through this. And you've also talked about or been asked about more in the UK, I would imagine, than in the US, about the characters that they play, or whatever how you want to describe it. I think you describe it better than I do. How would you characterize that? So I think a lot of people want to attribute every single thing that they've said to somehow trying to link it as if that's evidence of some sort of, criminal activity, which clearly, as well as I do, it's not. And for me, it's almost akin to if somebody plays a villain in a movie, if someone's acting, you can't use things that they said while acting in a movie, for instance, later in a criminal case as some sort of evidence of crime. And here, social media, I think, is that in between. Maybe it's not scripted the way a movie is, but it's certainly not reality. And I think everybody recognizes that. And particularly Andrew, I think, has built a lot of his following because he puts on this persona, and obviously, a lot of things are exaggerated, and he says things that he doesn't necessarily mean. And I gave this example, I think, in a different interview the other day, that he's talked about the fact that there's a ninja warrior inside of him that's, he's been alive for 5,000 years. And he asks people if they think eggs are real. And I'm talking about eggs as, what you and I eat. And he says he doesn't believe in eggs. So, he says things that are a little bit outlandish. And I think when it comes to more of the controversial things he has said, which is really what he has been attacked for, because if you listen to his content, again, I don't think anybody will disagree that the majority of what he says is really positive messaging to the youth. And it's, for the most part, young boys or men. And he believes in the traditional notions of masculinity. But besides that, he really talks about They call him TopG. They call him TopG. And again, that is part of this persona. Having a last name starts with a G, like you do as well. We're all in on TopGs. We are. But again, a lot of their messaging is very positive, and there's this small fraction that is the controversial portion. But anytime
when you read the headlines, there's always things that are taken out of context. And when you actually sit down to the longer interviews he's given, where he explains some of where this comes from, which is, whether it's rooted in religion or he has explanations that make a lot more sense in those long format interviews. And one of the things, again, that doesn't get talked about because they'll take things out of context is he's put out something called the 41 Tenets of Tate. And these are actually things that he's given real thought to, that he says these are the 41 tenets that he believes men should abide by in life. And when you actually read those, he one of them is how he utterly disapproves of violence and romantic relationships.
The only man
Gary's got.
Sorry, my mistake. I had something bleed through.
And he talks about how he, promotes consensual, loving relationships with women and how women have unique and amazing strengths. So I think those are the more important messages he's put out that he's given thought to, as opposed to things taken out of context in an interview where, again, as part of this persona, sometimes he has said things that are exaggerated and that don't sound so great.
Got it. So I think Gary's got one more clip that I wanted to pivot off of, and let's see.
Whatever those statements are, if those are statements he made, that is part of a public persona, which again is very different than the private individuals. And he's not in jail for those statements, much like you cannot put a rap artist in jail because his lyrics might be offensive and they might talk about, the B word and the hose, but you cannot jail someone for that. And it's a slippery slope. At the end of the day, we have to remember what we're dealing with when we're in a court of law, and that's evidence of a crime. And all of the things we're talking about are not evidence of any crime.
It's interesting, besides the fact that I like watching you when you talk about bees and hoes, but...
Well, in my defense, the question that was asked of me was the host of that show read me something that I don't know where she pulled it from. I wasn't familiar and I hadn't seen whatever it was she was reading from, but it literally sounded just like she was reading rap lyrics, and it used the bees and the hoes, and that's why I referenced that.
And by the way, isn't there a recent case, I thought I read it, of where a conviction was either reversed or it was the idea of introducing rap lyrics. I think it was introducing rap lyrics into a criminal case was ruled to be beyond the pale, basically, in reversible error, right?
I think you're right. Yes, I think I've read what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a California case. I read that story as well. It was an appellate case, I think, out of Riverside.
Yeah, and so this idea. So I guess it's something that's somewhat universal when you people love the idea of using speech to either criminalize or help in the aid of gaining a criminal conviction. What's up next, Tina, for the Tate Brothers? What's on the horizon? When's the next hearing?
So the next hearing will be shortly before. So their detention has been extended to the end of March. I think it's March 29th is the date. And the process there is about 5 to 7 days before the expiration of the detention order. The prosecution, if they so choose, will seek to renew it for another 30 days, which they could still do. And if they do that, then of course we would defend against that. But in the interim, we are working with the legal team there. I'm not going to disclose the strategy just yet, but I think we may be taking some action before the end of March.
And you were there. You were there in Romania. I was
in Romania. I was frustrated because they would not let me visit the brothers in jail. I made numerous attempts with the Romanian local council, and we took all the paperwork and my credentials. And there, the system is interesting because the prosecutor is the one who has the discretion to approve or deny their request. And
sounds like such a medieval process whereby the prosecutor gets to determine whether you can visit your client.
And I do think this is an unusual situation. I don't think there are a lot of U.S. attorneys that are trying to visit clients in Romanian jail who happen to be U.S. citizens. And the Tate brothers are dual citizens of U.S. and U.K. So I was told that this isn't a forever rejection, but that it might take some time. But obviously, in a case like this, there is a sense of urgency. And I obviously wish I could have seen them while I got to talk to them while I was in court that day. I wasn't able to appear in front of the judge, but I was able to attend the hearing and I got to speak with them. But yeah, I wasn't able to visit. So at some point I I left Romania because I could work with the team from here.
So, Tina, there's also been some news about a health scare. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So Andrew actually had a pre-existing health condition that he was being treated for prior to his arrest. And they had seen something on his lung that required treatment and further monitoring by the doctors. And he had a treating physician in Dubai, and he was scheduled to see the doctor for a follow-up. And while he was detained, he actually, obviously because of the situation, couldn't see his treating physician. He was taken to a local clinic in Romania. But this actually is interesting because at the most recent hearing, the prosecution was relying on some recordings of the brothers from jail with various people to argue that they shouldn't be released. And one of the reasons that
they had recorded, they had, like they do here, they listen to the recordings, the authorities do, and they were talking on the recordings to people they were calling out.
Exactly. And one of the things they used, and they were telling the court that basically they're a flight risk because Andrew in one of the phone calls said that, he plans to go to Dubai. And the full context actually of that conversation was, he said, if the appeal is granted and we are allowed out, if he's released, correct, that he planned to go see the doctor and follow up on his appointment, because obviously this is a serious health issue and he's taking it seriously. And so that was taken out of context.
A prosecutor took a conversation out of context.
It's shocking.
Come on, you must be kidding. And they used that he wanted to get health treatment as evidence of a flight? No.
And of course, as you can imagine, and this will shock you as well, the headlines all say, Andrew planned to flee to Dubai if he got out of jail. And so that was that narrative. And so I just wanted to clarify. But as of now, I do want to set the record straight. There has not been a cancer diagnosis. He is doing well. However, this is a serious condition and he does require further medical treatment. And hopefully he'll be out soon and he'll be able to get the best treatment possible.
Got it. Then Gary, did you find a clip of the?
I wasn't able to. I was trying to figure it out on my phone, but I wasn't able to pull one. And we'll have one for the next episode, and we'll review some of that.
Okay. Yeah, there's a certain degree of irony that the kings of the internet, and we can't find them on the internet.
I can find them, but I'm hesitating. I'm hesitating to place
it, Gary. But
I'm just saying, I can find it. That's not the issue. The issue is with this particular gentleman. I hesitate to play something on the air that I haven't had a chance to review. And as we heard it bleed through, I was trying to review something and I was unsuccessful. So my apologies. That is 100% on me.
Don't get all butthurt. I'm just having some Sunday morning motivation.
I like it.
Yes, Motivation Nation, brought to you by Alex and Ani. Tina, you have any Alex and Ani stuff on you?
I don't.
Oh my God, I was going to.
8:30 in the morning is a little early for jewelry for me.
Really? Okay, and there you go. This is their Sunday morning Motivation Nation, alexandani.com, who are the proud sponsors of Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Fulfill your own needs and your peace of mind will follow, right, T?
Yes, I agree.
Words to live by. Thank you guys both so much for your time this Sunday morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Tina. We'll have you back when there's some breaking news.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Stay tuned for more bonus episodes coming soon.